I'm Alison Araya from Peacemaker, and you're listening to Monday Morning Critic.
Have you ever heard of a guy named Peacemaker?
No.
He is a trained killer. We've got trouble with that maniac.
Go! What are you waiting for?
That thing better not crap back there.
Can't house train an eagle, dude. Not without stealing its soul.
Hey, Dad. It's been kind of a rough go for me lately, Dad.
You don't say.
Somebody shot me, a building fell on me.
You let somebody shoot you?
It's not like I invited him to come shoot me, Dad.
Pathetic.
I thought you were in prison for life.
I work for the government.
Post office?
Do you think they'd let me out of prison to deliver mail?
I don't know. It's the first government job I could think of.
I kill people for it, okay?
This task force doesn't officially exist, which leaves us on our own.
We call our targets butterflies. They are a serious threat to the safety of American citizens.
There's something weird going on. You think me and Vigilante are too stupid to notice?
Hey, everyone! Which one's me and which one's Eagly?
Okay, you're half right, but you score 50% of the test at school. What do you get? A D. School wasn't my bag. It's for dorks.
That guy's a clown.
But there's something about him that's sad.
Is your target in sight?
Peacemaker, take him out.
Even the kids?
Yes, terminate him immediately. Take the shot.
He told me to kill kids. He didn't say why.
Because right now the world needs a son of a bitch. And you're the only one I got.
I thought you loved peace, no matter how many men, women, and children you needed to kill to get it.
I don't know. Lately I'm having feelings about things. Dad, maybe I'm a grower, not a shower.
What?
An individual you don't like, and then you learn to like.
You're comparing yourself to a chode.
Not in a bad way.
Your dad is not a good man.
Still family.
My advice? Cut it out with the introspection. The mind is a den of scorpions better left running from, not towards.
You just got shot at! You ever been shot at?
No.
Two jerks in costumes and a couple of rejects.
It's like a real team out there.
Yo, what the hell is that?
It's a grenade I tied to a Russian tank shell.
Why not just the grenade?
Grenade blows up like 2 people.
How many people does this blow up?
I don't know. I invented it this morning.
What?
Eat peace, mother.
Welcome to Monday Morning Critic Podcast. Here is Derek Thomas.
My next guest filmography includes Smallville, Supernatural, Watchmen, and currently playing on HBO Max, the absolutely fantastic Peacemaker. Please welcome Alison Araya. Alison, thank you so much for giving me some time today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So as with all my guests, I do try to get a connection early on in lives because I think it helps sets up for a great interview and it sets up, the foundation of an interview. How long are you in Sydney, Australia for?
I was born and raised in Australia. So I lived there until I was 18, and then I moved to, 19, and then I moved to Italy to study theater over there.
Yeah. So what is it about? How do you find yourself when it comes to acting in Sydney, right? Because from what I hear, beautiful place. I've had many guests from Australia. What is it that fuels this passion for you? What is it that really you're drawn to when it comes to acting? Early on.
Yeah. So early on, I was that child at every gathering that was creating a performance. I was always asking everyone to, watch me perform little plays, and I'd get the kids together and direct a little show. So it was in my DNA. And then I remember I won a contest and I got some acting classes, and that was around like age 10. And it really made me fall in love with acting. And it's been nonstop ever since. I went to a performing arts high school. And again, that was an experience that really solidified that this is what I wanted to do. And then, I studied theater in Italy. I went to to school there, and I haven't looked back.
Yeah, I know you're a big Casablanca. I know you're very, very fond of Pedro Almodovar, if I'm saying that name correctly.
Yeah.
Is there any other actor, movie director early on as a kid growing up that really sparks your fuel? And I hear the other stuff you're saying, which sounds amazing, but is there a specific person, movie, anything of that nature?
You know what? I remember watching E.T. and seeing those kids, and that film made such an impact. Drew Barrymore in particular, there was something in that performance. And my mom tells me that I would watch Shirley Temple and I'd have this kind of love-hate relationship, this FOMO. I wanted to be doing what she was doing. So.
That's great. That is great. So you're definitely you're hook, line, and sinker. You're all in on acting.
I'm a lifer.
You are. But before we get into this amazing, you go to school in Italy, and I want to touch upon that because I think it's a really important part of your life. Help me understand this because I'm worried about you a little, Alison. Help me understand why you'd skydive but not bungee jump.
Okay, so there's this thing where I just imagine what it would feel like to dive over and have that feeling of your stomach going up into your throat and then that pullback on the cord. I can already imagine what that would feel like, and it freaks me out. The skydiving was totally amazing and fun, and I would do that again. But bungee jumping, don't think I would do that.
And there's another thing that was on the press kit that I received that was really awesome. Was that you have I want to say it's a phobia when you hear people the sound of chewing. Is that accurate?
Yeah, misophonia. It's a thing. I didn't
tell me what that is. Yeah.
Yeah. So, again, as a child, I would get really upset at the sound of chewing, and it would just create like an irrational level of anger in me. And so most people just thought I was being a brat, but it really disrupted something in me. And then later on in life, I came to find out that it's an actual condition, misophonia. So it's the sound, it's specifically the repetitive sound of chewing or saliva in the mouth that can set off a reaction that doesn't warrant, just a violent reaction that isn't warranted. I have learned to meditate, and with breathing exercises, I'm able to control it, and it doesn't affect me as it did a number of years ago. But if I go to the movie theater, I'm usually going to the matinee, and I'll buy myself my own popcorn, so I'm not pulled out of the experience by listening to other people. And that's the thing, like when you have this thing, it doesn't matter, your brain fixates on the sound, and then it's all it can hear. So yeah, I consider myself pretty lucky that it's not debilitating, but it's a real thing, and there are people out there that really suffer.
Oh, I believe you. Oh, I absolutely believe you. And I'm so happy to hear that you're a matinee cinephile, as I am. Always the matinee if I can do it for a lot of reasons. But not that this is a phobia, Alison, okay? But I have, and I hate bringing myself into interviews, and I don't rarely, but I will say, just kind of piggybacking on what you're saying, we haven't got out to eat recently because of the virus, but every once in a while before the virus, we'd go out a lot. I have to say, when I see people eating buffalo wings and I see them licking their fingers, I can't finish my meal. Like, it's not a phobia, but I'm all set after I see that. Like, my meal is to go at that point. Let's let's wrap this up. This game's over. I can't.
You're done.
I can't. It's like, if you really like the buffalo sauce that much, just get a little cup and drink that. Don't lick your it's not that good. Anyways, I'm getting way off topic here, but meditation's no joke. That's helped a lot of people out of a lot of serious things. So I'm happy to hear that. But you've bounced around a little bit, right? And, before I get into Italy, what are your memories of Australia? Have you gone back? Do you love it? I mean, it's one of those, for me, certainly a bucket list destination. What are your memories of it?
Australia is a beautiful country. I mean, the beaches alone are stunning. And it's not just the beauty of the beach itself. There's an energy. There's something about that ocean and that expanse that, I could just picture it, and, I get emotional just thinking about it. It's a beautiful country. I think also, it has such a rich Aboriginal history, and there's something really primal and sacred about Australia. That is something that I really revere and miss. My memories of Australia, you know, I grew up as a first-generation immigrant child, and you know, Australia at that time, it was a difficult place to grow up, being different, and it certainly reflected in my opportunities as an actor, which is one of the reasons, which is the main reason why I decided to leave, and I haven't gone back to Australia to work because representation was a real challenge. I do go back. You know, it's been harder, obviously, with the virus to travel as frequently as I would like to. But, you know, my family is there. Given the opportunity to go and work in Australia, I would do it in a heartbeat. But yeah, you know, it's been a really long time. And the last time I was in Australia, the last time I was in Sydney, that's where my family is, I actually felt like a bit of a tourist in my own city. I mean, Sydney is spectacular. It's changed so much. So the memory of Sydney I have like 20 years ago is so different. So I walked around kind of discovering that city anew. But it was really nice to visit old haunts, you know, old neighborhoods and coffee shops or restaurants, clubs, things. And I'm like, oh, I remember when I used to party here. I remember when I used to, you know. Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, and you make your way from Australia then to school in Italy, which is very impressive. What did you learn about yourself in Italy, and how was that portion of your life for you, Alison?
Oh my gosh, my time in Italy was amazing. I feel like there was no better place to spend my early 20s and discover who I am as a human being and as a woman than in Italy. You know, I feel like I must have been Italian in another life because I felt at home as soon as I got there. I had gone out there specifically with the intention to get into acting school, and I didn't really speak the language. I had a little bit of high school Italian, and I had, you know, my Spanish, but it was a struggle. But it really taught me resilience. I had to hustle. I was putting myself through school.
Wow.
But I learned the language. I made friends. I was able, you know, I remember specifically the process of gaining fluency in the Italian, because I'd go to class and I'd have this process of listening to class in Italian, translating it in English, and writing my notes in English. And then I would go listen to the lesson in Italian, start to think in Italian, still write in English. And then when I made the transition to absorbing the class in Italian, thinking in Italian, writing in Italian, I was like, I'm in.
Wow, but see, I don't see. It's almost like you're like you say, you're learning the language and you're learning about, you know, acting or whatever's in front of you, whatever specific part of, you know, the curriculum you're into. That's got to be doubly difficult, right?
It was, but it was also really beautiful because I remember a specific lesson where we were talking about specificity, and because my vocabulary at the time, I spoke Italian, but it wasn't poetic. Like, I didn't have a vast vocabulary to be able to express in-depth ideas. So I had to really find succinct language to express myself, and that really translated into the acting because there was nothing superfluous. It was direct, it was intentioned, and it was to the point. So in a way, it kind of helped me because it taught me to be really specific in my communication.
And why was that the choice, your destination? Why was it that specific? Why was it Italy? Why was it what was it about your decision? Why there? I mean, it sounds like you certainly flourished under those circumstances, and it was a great experience. But why there?
I'd always had a love for anything Italian. You know, where I grew up in Australia was really close to the Italian Quarter. And so I spent a lot of time there. I was, a fan of Italian cinema. Cinema Paradiso was one of the films that made a huge impact on me. Mm. And I fell in love. With the romance of that story and the cinema, and then it just sort of led me down a path of discovering more and more of Italian cinema. And Anna Magnani became one of my favorite actresses and heroines, and someone that I looked up to. But the Italian thing really came about because I had been trying to get into the biggest acting school in Australia, and I tried 2 times and I didn't get in, and I was told that I needed life experience. And when anyone tells me I can't do something, I make it a mission to prove them wrong. And so I remember leaving that audition situation and thinking to myself really loudly, I'm going to go to another country and I'm going to do the academy in another language and I'm going to show them.
Is there, and I'm not implying that you're I'll show you type of person, but is there a little bit of a smile on your face when you get to prove people wrong? Is that kind of a nice feeling or what?
Definitely, it's something that was more vibrant in my earlier life. But I did get major satisfaction from being able to get into that program on a scholarship and work with some incredible teachers. Like my education in that program was world class, and I have such fond memories and such reverence for that time. And it was a very different kind of process. We would go to class, no watches, no phones, no clocks. It was you're there and you work, and we would work from 8 a.m. to 7. We'd have, a couple of hours of break in between. We'd be working Monday to Saturday. And during this time, I was putting myself through school, so I was working in a nightclub. So I'd work Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And it was a huge sacrifice, but, you have that fuel of being in your 20s, endless amounts of energy. And I loved what I was doing. So I did it. And I'm so glad that I had that experience.
Jesus, driven, hardworking. Is there a bit of loneliness there because you up in a bit? I mean, 18 years old, you're out. I mean, you're off to Italy. You're kind of doing all of this on your own. You mentioned all the not difficulties, but it's not easy what you're doing, right? You're working, you're translating, I mean, that's a lot to process. Is there a little loneliness there on your part? And I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer, but like I think if I try sometimes to put myself in the people I'm interviewing shoes, right? So I've tried to picture myself if I was you. I think you would be lonely. I remember going to college. I mean, it was just an hour down the road, but I was homesick as hell. Do you get those feelings? Did you feel?
Oh my goodness. Did I ever? That first year that I was away was the hardest. I remember I lived in this little apartment, and all my roommates had left to go home for Christmas. And I was left by myself. This is so sad. I was left by myself in this huge apartment, and the way the apartments were set out, I could look into other people's homes and I could just see everyone gathered for these beautiful candlelit Christmas dinners. And there I was eating a can of frickin' tuna for Christmas, and I was just bawling. And I thought, oh my God, this is character building. But I was so fortunate that I made friends that became family, and I could tear up. There are friends to this day, and there's such an integral part of that part of my life. And yeah, so there was definitely sacrifice, loneliness, but I wanted it. I wanted to be the best I could be. So, at the same time, I had a lot of fun too. So there were times of, struggle, but there was also like dolce vita times too.
Wow. Yeah. And that's your story is so amazing. And then from Italy, is the next stop Canada? Am I correct on the timeline, Alison?
I went back to Australia for a bit, and I thought, after, and I don't want to sound like I have a hate on for Australia. I really do. I love being Australian. I love, having grown up in Australia. In terms of the industry, though, it was really challenging for me as a Latina to get a foot in. So I had thought that, after a bunch of years training in Italy and having this, prestigious school on my resume, I would have a little more access to opportunities. But I found that I still had the same struggles, and I wasn't given the opportunity. I couldn't find the opportunities to really do what I wanted to do. And so, a moment of grace, I was in an acting class, and I met an actor who told me about the industry in Vancouver. And at that point, I had decided that I was going to move to LA on a wing and a prayer and just figure it out. And he sort of advised me that being part of the Commonwealth, I could work and live in Canada, and there was a vibrant industry here. So I took him on his word, and I applied for my papers, and I got here, and I hit the ground running. Like within a month, I was represented and auditioning. And yeah, it's been sort of, a journey since then, and really just starting to find some real momentum now.
Oh, that's really well said. And it's not hate, Alison, if it's your life, it's your life story, right? I mean, I'd rather have you be honest and tell the truth than like kind of snowball it or I think you're being very honest and truthful. And it does not sound like hate, but it is an amazing journey for sure. Two other quick things before we dive into Peacemaker. You speak 3 languages fluently: Spanish, Italian, English. Obviously, very impressive. You are of Chilean descent, so pretty amazing things there, right? Because I can speak Polish. I always consider it a gift to be bilingual. The fact that you can do 3 languages is even more impressive. But do you find that you're very appreciative of that? The fact that you can speak multiple languages.
100%. I think there's, I've always loved language, and one of the gifts of being able to speak different languages is that there is a nuance in different words. So when I read, I'm a huge fan of Paulo Coelho, and my favorite book is The Alchemist. And
I saw that on your Instagram. That's a great book. I have that. Great book.
Yeah. I love it. I've read it in English, Italian, and Spanish. And every time I read it in a different language, there's just a new nuance, a new flavor, a new depth that I get to experience. So my goal actually for this year is to read it in French.
The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, also a fantastic book if you have not read it.
It is. I have 2 copies.
Okay. So when I think of great books, that's the one that comes to my head. So I sounded smart there for about 3 seconds. So I just. So you are part of the. Before you get into Peacemaker, you are part of the Walking Dead universe, which I absolutely love. One of my favorite shows of all time. You are on Fear the Walking Dead. Just a great part. You're in a lot of great. Like, I don't want to repeat other interviews, but you're in a lot of great genres, a lot of great, quote unquote, groups of shows that have a fanatic following. That's awesome, right? That's got to feel great.
I feel like I won the lottery, honestly. I think being a character actor is such a gift. It allows me to jump from different genres. And when I look at my resume, sometimes, I'll go back and look at things that I've done. And I think, holy moly, this has been amazing. Like, I can't imagine a more diverse career. And I've gotten to work with actors that I've admired for such a long time, directors, been part of stories that I really cared about. And it's so far, it's been such a pleasure and honor, and I feel like the best is yet to come.
Oh, absolutely. And I don't think you hit the lottery. I think you've earned every bit of your travels. I really believe that.
Thank you.
Do you pick, when you mentioned people that you've followed, as you get older, actors you admire, you ever pick their brains, you ever set them aside and say, what do you do in this situation? Or how does that moment ever come up? Obviously you're there, you're each there to do a job. I get that. And I totally get you're not fangirling anything, but like, do you find there's moments where you're, I don't know, whether it's James Gunn or a project you've done in Smallville or Supernatural or X-Men, is there ever a time or sometimes learning can always be just visually just soaking things in? Have you ever picked somebody's brain in that case?
Well, I am an observer by nature. So, sometimes I can be misunderstood as being aloof, but I'm absorbing as much as I can. I remember when I started out, I forgot to mention this detail. I started out right at the bottom. I worked as background.
Wow.
For many years. And I was the person that would stand. I probably was the worst background performer because I wasn't there to be in the background. I was there to learn. So I would stick around, where the crew was, and I would listen to how the director was working and what was being asked of the actors. And I'd try to listen to the actors and their process. So I was always absorbing all the information. So whenever I'm on set, I've learned so much, and some actors have been so generous in just conversing with them. I think for me personally, my approach has always been, respect every actor, give them their space. I've seen, because I've been on enough shows to know what the pressure of being a number 1, 2, 3 on a show is. You've got a lot going on. You're not there to entertain anyone else. So when I'm on set, professional, if there's a moment to engage and they're wishing to engage with me, I'm so happy to have that conversation. But, I try to go to work, know my stuff, show up. But, that approach has allowed for some really genuine connection and communication and conversations around acting. And again, being an observer, watching how people work has taught me a lot. I mean, working with James Gunn was like masterful. His direction was so brilliant, and what I ended up seeing was like, oh my God, I owe so much of that because of his brilliance and, the way he directed me. So
underrated writer too, Alison. He gets credit for his directing, great writer.
So good, so good. Like, that was the thing, I was asked how much of it was improv. I'm like, there was some improv, but the writing was so freaking tight that it didn't require that much. I mean, it's all there on the page.
So yeah, let's dive into this. So leaving the Suicide Squad, Peacemaker is not really a great guy, right? We see in the post-credit scene, he's kind of made it through. And boy, I want to talk about Amber here. I'm lucky enough to have you. I was lucky enough to have Chuck Ouji on the podcast from Peacemaker. What a great actor he is.
Yeah, I didn't get to meet him, but I heard so many great stories about him. I'm like,
he's just Shakespearean trained guy that it's just what you go through. What he like, I don't think people realize, having interviewed many actors, the price that you guys have to pay. Like the ones that are like you, who are very serious about their craft. Like you invest you guys are all in. All in. And that's
all in.
It's so impressive. You mentioned James Gunn. I've never seen a show like this, right? So I'm going to ask you this. We're all caught up, right? So I'm a very self-conscious person, right? You're in a couple scenes with John Cena, which are just, to say funny might be an understatement. They're hysterical. So there's one scene I was dying to ask you about, and if you don't want to answer this, you don't have to. So I'm a self-conscious person. I am just I don't know, insecure might be even a better word. When you have a scene where you don't have a shirt on, a top on, is that tough to act? Is that I hope that's not a huge spoiler, but because you're in a scene with a tough actor like Cena, right? He's a good guy, but you got to get the scene right. I don't know. Like, I've always wanted to ask somebody this. Is it tough to do a scene like that? Know your lines, not get nervous. Like, to me, it's just so much there. And if that's too personal, you absolutely don't have to answer that.
No, I'm happy to answer it. It was the first time that a role like this had come up for me. And so I thought about it, and I thought what it would mean and why I wanted to do it. And I was really, when we talked about it and, we were negotiating it, we knew that there would be an intimacy coordinator on set, and she would liaise between us. And so I felt like, this was going to be a really fun scene, and, and also an opportunity to portray a middle-aged woman that was still vibrant and sexual, because I feel like, women get to a certain age and then they just cease to exist. Yeah. And so I'm
not laughing at that. I'm thinking of Amber, because she's such a firecracker, right? She's so, yeah, I wasn't laughing at what you were just saying. I was just, as you're speaking, I'm thinking you are totally describing Amber. She's such a firecracker. Go ahead. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah, no problem. And so I thought, this is, I see this as a moment of empowerment. So, of course, getting to set, I'm like, okay, today's the day. And that was actually my first day filming. That was my first day on the show, filming that scene. But, we had a closed set. It was super professional. And more than anything, because I wanted to tell the story of someone who was really comfortable in their body, really comfortable in their sexuality. For me, it was just have that post-coital joint bliss, make that as truthful as possible, and just to maintain that relaxation. And I think it came across, and in terms of, my, like, being comfortable in my body, like a lot of women, I've gone through many phases in my life where I've been completely, uncomfortable in my skin. And, since as an older woman, as I've gotten older, I've come to appreciate myself and my body and really, feel aligned and comfortable in my skin and celebrating it. So for me, it's, I think it's a crowning moment so far. I'm really proud of that work and that scene.
Oh, that's well said. And it's not like this needless nudity, right? It's just it adds to such a wonderfully funny scene. It's not tacky. It's really, really well done. But again,
I think so.
Yeah, of course. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Well, I think it's a hilarious sort of callback to that earlier scene, because we don't know. We don't see how this happens. It just happens, and we're like, yes.
And there's a scene before that where they talk about Cinderella, right? So that's when they start to make their connection.
Exactly.
Yes.
But how they ended up, meeting each other, that's everyone can invent their own story of how that communication or how that went down. But I think it also grounds the character of Peacemaker. It puts him into the world, and he's relating to people. I mean, he's just come out, and he's ready to live a little life, and Amber certainly is ready to live a little life.
Yeah, and Cinderella is a really underrated 80s band, I have to say. Well, John Cena, great guy to work with. Is he? What was that experience like for you?
Amazing. Yeah. Absolutely amazing. He's hilarious. He's so smart, and I had a great time working with him. Like I mentioned earlier, anyone carrying a show, anyone at the number one has so much pressure. You want to get it all right, and this is a brand new show, and you're finding the tone, and everyone's putting their trust in James, and there's a lot going on. As audiences, you sort of see the finished product, and there's this sort of illusion that it all comes together, but it's a process, and so it was really special to be a part of those earlier episodes and be in that soup of trying to figure it out and understanding what this is, and having those scenes with John, those moments with John. Oh my gosh, I see them, and it takes me back to that day. And I remember I posted something of just having had the most fun I've ever had on set. So he was amazing to work with. I hope we get to do it again. Oh, me too. And, I have to say, he is, the kids who are part of the Make-A-Wish Foundation, he is the number one guy they ask for by far. And I think I see why. I think I see why from the outside, because he's just such a good guy, good man. He's really about other people. So I'm happy to hear you say that. It's a thrilling thing. One thing but this whole show is just crazy, right? There's, if I tried to pitch this, listen, without the backstory, if I said, look, there's going to be some hugging of eagles. There's going to be, photos that go on computers that don't belong. It's an insane show that is so awesome, right? And that's the thing I love about DC. DC is it's so much more hardcore than Marvel, right? People say, superhero movies. DC and Marvel could not be storytelling in two more different ways, right? You watch a show on Marvel, or on Disney Plus. The Marvel shows like Hawkeye are done very differently, clearly, than something like Peacemaker. But for my personal taste, I'm all in on Peacemaker. Like, this is just like, we can't stop laughing. Like, I get jealous because I get mad too, because it's one of those shows where I wish I could just keep going and going and going. But I think the weekly drops make me appreciate it more, Alison. I couldn't agree more. I think that build up and dropping those 3 episodes and really getting people hooked into the story and just wanting more. I think it's genius. And also the fact that 8th episode is a mystery to everyone. I can't wait. I'm dying.
And the other thing that people should know is, hang on, there's a lot of post-credit stuff involving you, my friend, right?
Yes.
Okay, so, and this one had me this was like, I just couldn't stop laughing at this either, where I'll be very generic here in how I describe it. It's not the ruin, but like, you're looking at, you're trying to pick out a suspect that you saw in a crime. There's a bunch of pictures, and you ask, can I have that one? And obviously it's Peacemaker. It's just so really, again, another awesome moment in an awesome show.
Yeah, one of the things that I had so much fun with is after getting the scenes and getting clean dialogue, James would always give us an opportunity to do a little improv, and by that stage, Lenny and I had really found our dynamic, and so the improv just became this extension of this dysfunctional marriage. And it's that moment when you're improving where it doesn't even feel like improv anymore. You're just so invested in it, and things just happen, and that just happened. And sometimes when those things happen, internally, part of me is like,
and he paid you the ultimate compliment, I think, on Twitter, James. And he said something really nice about you on Twitter. I thought I saw a message from him. He's been really complimentary of your performance, I feel like.
Oh, he totally has. Like, I mean, honestly, the tweet to welcome us onto the show, and then just so much love and how supportive he's been. Like, it means a lot. I mean, not everyone does that. And I think that's just, I mean, he's so available. He's so engaging with so many of the fans, and taking time to answer questions and answer, tweet back at people. And so to be on the receiving end of some of that love, honestly is an honor, and I think that's why people really resonate with his work, because it's genuine. He's genuine.
Yeah, and it's so easy for people to so I see it all the time where they just recognize the first couple of people on the call sheet, but he's embraced the entire family. He's all in on the entire cast, which makes I guess is very telling about James Gunn. Allison,
100%.
Allison, I'm very excited about this. What is around the corner for you? What is upcoming for you? Like, for those listening, your filmography is very lengthy. And you mentioned it, very eclectic. You play a lot of different roles. Certainly, you were born to do this. What lies ahead for you, my friend?
Nothing that I can talk about just yet. I know that's like such an annoying answer, but there's some really fun stuff coming down the road. But those NDAs have been signed, so I just have to wait and see. But definitely, this is going to be a big year, and I'm really grateful and really excited for what's to come.
Well, I'm grateful that you came on the podcast today, because you're a great guest and a great person, and thank you for giving me some of your time today.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Derek Thomas and Monday Morning Critic podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, you can also connect with Monday Morning Critic on Instagram and Facebook, MDM Critic on Twitter, subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever podcasts are found. All episodes available, www.mmcpodcast.com.